Alrighty, here's an example of a circle question that I could give you. So the question is, graph this relation. And we notice two things. One, it's not written in the nice equation for a circle form like we see up here. So we're gonna have to do something about that. And also, it's not an actual equation, it's an inequality. And so my first step for creating or graphing an inequality is to first pretend it's not an inequality, pretend it's an actual equal sign. So let's just focus on that first. I just figured we could just combine the two ideas into one video. So my equation is really x squared plus y squared plus 10x minus 6y minus 2 equals 0. So pretend it's an actual equation, excuse me. What I'll do is I'm going to separate all the x stuff together and then all the y stuff together. And also I'm going to put the constant stuff on the other side. And I'll show you why when I get there. So x squared plus 10x. And I'm going to leave space here because what I'm eventually going to do is I'm going to complete this square. Plus something, I don't know what that is yet. And I'm going to use different colors here just to make it really clear. Plus y squared minus 6y plus something else equals 2, and I just moved that 2 to the other side. Again, I know that I'm going to want to end up with x plus or minus something squared plus y plus or minus something squared equals r squared, because that's just the equation of a circle. So that's why I know I'm going to have to complete this square. So let us do that. Let's see. So I did the work already off to the side, but if you're unsure about where I'm getting these from, you should pause the video for a second and just do that yourself real quick. But this is going to end up being x plus, I'll slow it down. I won't go the whole way. Plus, I'm going to have to add in 25 for the x's, and to complete the square for the y, I'm going to have to add in 9. So I have the 2 on the right side, but now I have to add in 25 to both sides, but also 9, so don't forget to add both of those. Now when I factor, this is a perfect square, and I'll have x plus 5 squared, and then for the y's, it'll be y minus 3 squared. And that's going to equal, I believe, 36. So now we actually know what our circle is going to look like. This is going to have a center of, now notice, if it's x plus 5, then that means the x coordinate is actually negative 5, remember. So that's going to be negative 5 comma positive 3. And our radius is not 36, it's the square root of 36, which is 6. And so let's draw this. I'll draw it over here. Let's see, negative 5, 3, so that's going to maybe move my axis. Okay, so let's see, negative 5, 3 is going to be, say, right there. So that's my center, and I know my radius is 6, so I'm going to draw it in, I'll draw in block 2, 6, so maybe it's something like that. Okay, now that's as if this was an equal sign, so this equation is that. But notice here, that's not what we want. We want an inequality, or we want to graph an inequality. And so now the question is, which side do I shade? Or actually, even before that, if you remember from graphing linear inequalities, we need to figure out if this thing is, a dashed circle or not. Well, since it's not an equation, it's an actual inequality, it is strictly less than, right? And so it does not allow you to be equal to the circle. And so we know that at least this should not include it. So I'm going to break this circle up a little bit. Try to do it a little bit more. Okay, so we know it's going to be a dashed circle. And this is really, there we go. I think that looks a little better. Okay, we know it's going to be a dashed circle. And the question is, do I want to choose that point or not? Now, as is, it's a little bit tricky to see, but think about this. We didn't do anything weird to deal with we didn't do anything funky like square both sides or take the square root of both sides or anything like that. All we did was add stuff to the left and right and subtract things. So that actually does not break any inequalities. And what I mean by that is, if I have something like this, x plus 7 is less than 8. If I subtract 7 from both sides, this is true, right? X is still less than 7. Oh, sorry, x is still less than, screwed up. X is less than 1, right? And so that's okay. But weird stuff happens if you say x plus 7 is less than 8, and then if you do something like square both sides. Weird stuff can happen. I'm not going to go into that now, but we didn't do any of that weird stuff. And so what I can do is essentially just pretend, and maybe I didn't need to do this in the first place, but I could have just left it, oops, as a less than sign. Less than. So let's think about this. This equation right here, the black border, says your distance from the center is equal to 6. What this equation actually says now, boxed in or highlighted in green, what does this say? Well, this would say that your distance from the center, the center being still -5, 3, is less than 6. Take a minute and just absorb that and accept that. And if not, then leave a comment or shoot me an email. Since the distance that we're looking for is less than 6, that would mean you don't want the actual circle, as in the border of the circle, and you don't want the outside because that would be farther than 6. So what we actually want for our actual solution would be this. And so this graph, or this relation right here, is actually this purple region inside the circle, and also is not including the circle. Now, if you're not sure about this whole idea of what I was doing here, another way you can do this is you can always just plug in a point and check. So now my sketch is really rough, so maybe I wouldn't really know what point to check. For example, I would check, I want to check the origin, but my drawing might not be very accurate, and so I don't know if the origin is in the inside of the circle or on the outside of the circle. But there is a point that you absolutely always know is where it is, and that's always the center. And so if you weren't sure, you can always, let's go over here. Let me get rid of this. So the center is always on the inside. So my equation is x squared plus y squared plus 10x minus 6y minus 2 less than 0. Again, I'm checking it into the original equation because I don't know if all the work that I did maybe affected the properties or anything of the inequality. So I'm going to check the center. Now we assume that the center is correct and we did that work correctly. But I'm going to check -5, 3. So what happens? -5 squared plus 3 squared plus 10 times -5 minus 6 times 3 minus 2 less than 0. And so let's see, that'd be 25 plus 9 minus 50 minus 18 minus 2. Let's see. I can tell that the negative stuff is going to be more negative than the positive stuff is positive, so I think this is correct. I'm not even going to worry about actually doing it. And so what does this mean? Well, when I plugged in this point, it makes the inequality true. So since it makes, so 5, 3, -5, 3, makes it true, that implies that the solution set, right, all the points that make them true, make this inequality true, the solution set is the region containing that point. That point. And if you had picked a point outside the circle, it would have not been true. So that's always my suggestion for checking. Now, also remember, with a linear inequality, it's pretty easy, because if it says y is greater than mx plus b or whatever it is, then you know it's above. And if it's less than, you know it's below. In this case, though, there's no above below. It doesn't really make as much sense. Now, with a circle, it makes we could figure out what it means, because if it's less than, then you're inside the circle. If it's greater than, then you're outside the circle. That's nice. But with some equations, so maybe if I had a sideways parabola, what does above or below mean? Because this region up here is both above and below. So that's why I like having this idea. This method, which always works, is that if you check a point, it tells you, hey, do I shade in that region or not? So here, hopefully this helps us, is a broad enough example to cover, one, how do I sketch a circle from the equation when it's not given to me in a nice, easy, circular equation form, like up here. And also a refresher on how to graph inequalities.